West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday, May 21. Here we go with another edition of the Bill Press Show. Good to see you today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of the program as we tackle the big stories of the day on this Wednesday, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, or around the globe. We are there. We are on top of it. We'll tell you what's going on and give you a chance to tell us what you think about it all. Coming to you live on Free Speech TV all across this great land of ours. Of course, you find us on your satellite dish on DirecTV or the Dish Network, and worldwide on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Oh, some of the big news among the big items we'll cover today. Dinesh D'Souza, that firebrand conservative commentator who was charged in January for laundering campaign contributions to a U.S. Senate candidate. At the time, all the right-wingers rushed Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham rushed to defend him, saying he was just being targeted by the Obama administration. He did nothing wrong. Well, yesterday, D'Souza pleaded guilty and said he knew what he was doing was wrong. He just thought he could get away with it. So much for the big conspiracy theory. President Obama at the White House today will welcome the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks to the White House. And then later this afternoon, he will create a proclamation creating a new national monument at the Organ Mountains National Monument out in central New Mexico. On the VA front, President Obama trying hard to get the White House on top of that, sending his Deputy Chief of Staff, Rob Neighbors, to Phoenix later today to personally look into those allegations that some 40 veterans may have died because of delays in their health treatment. We'll wrap it all up, bring it to you. You give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. On with the show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Casting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Mitch McConnell wins in Kentucky. That's all right. He'll lose in November. What do you say? Good morning, everybody. Here we go. It is Wednesday, May 21. And this is the Bill Press Show. Just what you've been looking for, just what you've been waiting for, just what you got up for this morning. Here we are on your local progressive talk radio station. Good morning on the TuneIn app, Progressive Voices channel. Good morning. You join us on your iPhone and download that app, TuneIn app. It's free. You get all kinds of opportunities there to listen to a lot of good stuff, including the Progressive Voices channel. Here we are. Good morning on Free Speech TV. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number if you're listening or watching on Free Speech TV. And worldwide on our video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV. We will tell you what's going on, and you tell us what it all means to you, again, by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Beautiful day here starting out in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Hope it is wherever you happen to be, and it's such a good day. The whole team showed up this morning due for a change.
Only because it was nice.
I know.
Watch out if it rains.
I thought I was afraid it was going to be bad weather.
Then you were going to just roll over, pull up the covers, and go back to sleep.
To bed.
Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hey, guys.
Hey, good morning.
Ho, ho, ho. With, there she is, Alicia Cruz, on the phones with the big wave, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, here behind the locked, closed, fortified cockpit door.
That's it.
Watch out. He's trying to get in again. Cyprian Bolding keeping us looking good on our video stream. How about it? They are still having fun with Karl Rove and his comments about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton fighting back. In fact, she's found, made a deal with the perfect way to get back at Karl Rove and to settle this issue once and for all, as David Letterman told us last night.
So now, Karl Rove, big puffy Karl Rove.
Big puffy, I like that.
Says that she has brain damage. And so now here, Hillary has released this announcement dealing with the concern over the health of her brain. I think this is a good idea.
Hillary Clinton assures Americans that her brain is perfectly healthy. To alleviate any doubts, next week, Weill Cornell Medical Center surgeons will temporarily remove her brain to allow registered voters to view, poke, and inspect the organ. Hillary Clinton, Clinsanity.
That's the way to do it. Just put it up there. Just going in to vote. You have any doubts, you just yeah. Yeah,
I
hey,
like
it looks
that.
good to me.
That's what it'll take.
Right. That's what, yeah. Even then, Karl Rove will say, traumatic brain injury. Probably that. Well, that won't even convince him, but, I like that. Big puffy.
Big puffy Karl Rove.
It's almost as good as Turd Blossom.
Turd Blossom.
Not quite. On a Wednesday, we got for you David Jackson down at the White House, covers the White House for USA Today. And then reporters from all of our good media outlets here in Washington, D.C., at least several of them at least, including The Hill and Politico and Huffington Post and the National Journal. What more do you want? And you got all of us, too. So here we go. But first, oh, wait. What did I say about?
Stop everything!
Sorry.
It's all right. No.
You said fur. You threw me there.
I know. I threw you off. I was just going to say it.
What now?
The best story of the day. This is so delicious. A top right-wing conservative found guilty.
It's pretty good.
Guilty. Wait till you hear a break. The hero of all the right-wingers pled guilty yesterday. We'll tell you about that. Now, ready? But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Trained mice here.
It's true. It is true. Having been on that side of the board, I can relate. Yes, just a couple of other stories making news this morning. Let's go to the NBA for a couple of quick stories. First of all, last night the Heat and the Pacers resumed their series where the Heat came out on top, 87-83. That now puts it at one game apiece.
1-1.
Yeah, yes, indeed. So that continues to move forward. Meanwhile, last night, the NBA had their lottery to see who gets the number one draft pick, and the number one draft pick for the second year in a row, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, that's not supposed to happen, right? They're supposed to get better as they get more number one draft picks.
Right.
Last year, they drafted Anthony Bennett, who was a total bust, so they again had a terrible record. Philadelphia 76ers had the worst record in the NBA last year. They ended up with the number 2, and the Milwaukee Bucks took home number 3. So they will get the first picks in the NBA draft when that comes around. It's a good class coming up. So.
All right, here we go. This is like the NBA draft, just like the NFL.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
All just a phony PR stunt.
Congratulations to MSNBC's newest host. He is Jose Diaz-Balart. He is going to host the 10 a.m. hour live from Miami. He is a Telemundo anchor, also brother to former Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart and current Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart.
Yeah.
So they are a very political family, and
Boy,
they know politics. Yeah. So is
MSNBC going to force him to wear a sombrero?
I don't think they're going to go down that path a la their Cinco de Mayo stunt. Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. Stay tuned. It would have been great to get his reaction to that when that happened. Yeah.
You'll get it now.
Last night, Dancing with the Stars crowned their champion for...
Oh, my God.
By the way, season 18...
Really?
Yeah. They don't do a season a year.
Can't be.
No, they do like a couple of seasons a year.
Oh.
They just constantly churn out new seasons because they can turn it around. Anyway, for those who care, the winner last night was Olympic ice figure skater Merrill Davis. Merrill Davis won.
You know, I just have to say, of course, it's hardly appointment viewing for me.
I've never seen an episode.
And
I never will.
But the fact that we have not heard anything at all about this season's DWS means they didn't have a good year.
Yeah.
I mean, there has been no buzz, no news at all.
Nope.
Right?
They have a huge following, though, because it's on 2 nights a week.
I know.
I mean, look, they do.
All I'm saying is some years, Tom DeLay, Bristol Palin, you hear about it.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't
true.
hear anything about it this year.
Look, when you do 18 seasons, and essentially they're constantly on the air.
Yeah, right.
People get tired of it. I never had a chance to get tired of it because I never bought into it in the first place.
Right.
But people will get tired of it.
There has never been a show as good as Tucker Carlson when he started it out. So
that's right.
It was downhill from there as far as I was concerned. Yeah. I never forget what Tucker told me. He'd agreed to be on Dancing with Us. I said, "You what? Why, Tucker? What are you thinking?" He didn't last long.
No, he didn't last long. I think it was the first one out.
Oh, yeah, he was. Booted out the first night. Yes, indeed, I got to tell you, this is so delicious, this story. I love it. And I think this says a lot. And the reason I want to start here this morning, this says a lot about conservative media, okay? Look, people disagree on the issues. I understand that. Life would be boring if we all agreed. I certainly understand that. It's good to have good, solid conservatives. There's some issues in which I even agree with them. Good to have good, solid libertarians, and there are a lot more issues in which I agree with them. And good to have some, left-wing Democrats as well. But you all got to be, honest, I think, and say what you believe and play fair and square and don't make stuff up. That's not always the case with some of our friends on the right wing, and they got caught yesterday and exposed yesterday, and I think it's fun. I just have to tell you about it. I want you to know about it, and I think it says a lot about this crowd on the other side, particularly those big mouths on the media. You can't trust them because they lie. And we're all what I'm talking about is a man by the name of Dinesh D'Souza. You may have never heard of him, but he's a very popular conservative writer, commentator, and documentary filmmaker. A couple of years ago, he made a documentary that the right wing just salivated about called Obama's America, where he basically accused President Obama of being in the hip pocket of Al Qaeda. He was not a real American, not a real patriot. And the right wing just loved it. It was a real trashing President Obama. At the same time, then Dinesh D'Souza made a little mistake. He went down to a Christian conservative conference in the South somewhere and showed up with a beautiful young lady whom he introduced as his fiancée.
Oh, that's nice that he found love.
That was very, very nice. He found
romantic.
Love. Yeah. It just turned out that he was still married.
Whoops.
And it also turned out that she was still married. Yes.
Okay.
And they were just off on a little fling. He had to give a speech down there, so he took her along. The whole thing came out. And on the heels of that sex scandal, Dinesh D'Souza had to resign as president of the Christian King's College up in New York State. D'Souza said at the time that he didn't realize, but he told Christianity Today, right? Get this. He didn't know that Christians generally did not approve of engagements prior to divorces being finalized. Well, she's still married to the husband. He's probably divorced, I would think. But at any rate, so we got that whole documentary, the whole sex scandal behind him. And then here's in January, this is past January, he is charged by the Department of Justice with violating campaign laws, laundering money, basically, giving people money so that they could make a contribution to a favorite Senate candidate of his. $20,000 he actually laundered. And get this, are you ready for this? He laundered the $20,000, gave cash to these people so they would write checks to his Senate candidate. Guess who he did that through? His mistress and her husband. Same old mistress, same old sad sack of a husband, his wife is not only cheating on him, but he's breaking the law, writing phony checks for Dinesh D'Souza. And he's charged with this, laundering money. And then the right wing came out and said, oh, no, this is terrible. The Obama administration is targeting him. This is payback for his documentary. They're just after him. He's on Obama's enemies list. Here they are. You'll recognize these voices. Sean Hannity, Fox. Neil Cavuto, Fox. Laura Ingraham, Talk Radio. And Rush Limbaugh, all rushing to say this is a big conspiracy. The Obama administration is just out to get our buddy Dinesh D'Souza, this poor victim.
The enemies list of the administration seems to be growing day by day, and the latest victim, Dinesh D'Souza.
Conservatives under attack. Commentator Dinesh D'Souza. D'Souza, of course, indicted for campaign finance fraud. The IRS reportedly targeting conservative Hollywood groups.
We are criminalizing political dissent in the United States of America.
They are. The justice system, as run by Democrats, is out trying to criminalize as many Republicans and conservatives as they can.
Isn't it funny that Laura Ingraham and Rush Limbaugh would use the exact same phrase?
Isn't that curious?
Yeah, isn't that curious? You don't think they get talking points, do you?
Weird.
At any rate, they all go out and say he's a victim, he's a victim. Oops. Yesterday, Dinesh D'Souza walked into federal court and admitted that he was guilty. Told the judge, yes, I knew what I was doing was wrong. I did it anyway. I thought I could get away with it. He was lying, and he knew all of those other people were lying, and he let them lie on and on and on. Why? To smear President Obama. It just shows what the whole gang is made up of. They make this crap up. And you know, we tell you that, but you don't believe it. But here is living proof with Dinesh D'Souza. Now, he'll be sentenced. He may spend no time in jail. The judge could give him up to 2 years, as I understand it, for laundering money. But I think what this does, it really exposes the right-wing media machine, the Obama hate machine, for the phonies and the frauds and the liars that they are. And this is the same tactic they use, remember, when the IRS, the whole IRS thing is based on the premise that only conservative organizations are being targeted by the IRS, which is not true. The IRS is out after any political groups that look for a tax-exempt status, whether they're on the left or the right, to make sure that they're effectively an education organization and not a political organization. They tried to paint Clive Bundy, that dingbat crazy rancher out of Nevada, as a victim of the Obama administration, when in fact he was stealing money from us for not paying us for running his cattle on land that we own. So, I mean, this whole thing of victimhood, and now Dinesh D'Souza just exposes them all as a fraud. I think a fraudulent bunch. Rush, Laura, Sean Hannity, Neil Cavuto, Mark Levin, all of them, just living frauds.
I think it's important that you point this out. It's very important that you point this out because they do this all the time.
Yeah.
And they don't ask questions, they don't get details, they don't get the full story. They just immediately leap to the defense, which in some respects has been very successful for them.
Yeah. Well, this time they got caught.
Right. Exactly.
And I want to say this fine. I love your comments, 866-55-PRESS. I will go on the air tomorrow and apologize to Sean Hannity, to Laura Ingraham, to Rush Limbaugh, to Mark Levin, to Neil Cavuto, if they will go on the air today and apologize and admit they were wrong. And if they will do that today, I will tell you tomorrow, I apologize to them. I will salute them for telling the truth. I dare them to admit that they lied to the American people. 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, a lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity, and one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him, because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, a little breaking news here. The White House just released an update on the president's schedule today at 10 o'clock this morning in the Oval Office. He is meeting with General Shinseki from the VA and with Rob Neighbors, his deputy chief of staff, who has been delegated to help resolve and fix the problems at the VA. The president personally getting involved here. We'll see what happens out of that. Right now we're talking about Dinesh D'Souza pleading guilty yesterday to laundering money after all the conservatives said he was nothing but a victim. Dale is down in Chatsworth, Georgia. What do you think of this, Dale?
Hey, Bill.
Hey.
Okay, Dinesh, when Fox did a report on him maybe a month ago, they didn't mention he was a conservative filmmaker. They had a photo of Barack Obama and a photo of him side by side, and they just said Barack or Obama filmmaker. They kind of scrubbed him being a conservative. Like when they'll put a D instead of an R over a crooked Republican.
Yeah, right. Well, they certainly tried to make him out for something that he was not, and they painted him again as this great big victim, this great big target that Obama was just picking on Dinesh D'Souza. No, Dinesh D'Souza was out, committing felonies is what he was doing, which means I guess he loses his right to vote.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but like go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about, you know, your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. You know, I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Hey, here we are on a Wednesday morning, May 21, talking about the colossal embarrassment yesterday for a lot of conservatives in the media who had embraced Dinesh D'Souza as their new hero and painted him as a victim of President Obama's enemies list, targeted by the IRS, targeted by the DOJ. They went after him only because he made this documentary about President Obama. That's why they charged him with laundering campaign money. Turns out, not so. In fact, Dinesh D'Souza admitted yesterday that he knew what he was doing. He was laundering money. He knew it was wrong. He just wanted to help a friend, and he thought he could get away with it. And he didn't care that other people repeated the same lie. He was just out to smear Obama in the first place. We're waiting to see if his defenders and Obama's detractors all come out today, and they should apologize to the president for accusing him. Be a man.
I'm sorry. I just had this vision of,
Come on.
Sean Hannity beginning his show tonight.
Mr.
We'd like
President,
to, first of all, start with an apology to
President Obama. Right. Come on, Laura Ingraham, be a man. Apologize. That's, man up here, right? Yeah. And apologize to the president for smearing him and saying that he was out to get Dinesh D'Souza when Dinesh D'Souza himself says, no, Obama wasn't out to get me. I just broke the law. Yeah. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. What does this say about the right-wing media? It says, you know what? How do you know when they're lying? You know the answer. John's out in Ferndale, Washington. Hey, John, how are you?
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning.
Dinesh D'Souza. Have you seen Obama 2016?
No.
His mockumentary.
Obama's America, isn't that what it was called?
But it also had the 2016. By the time I saw it, right, it's a confusing mess of, like, there's a segment on his stepbrother far removed. Look how he doesn't care for him. He's living in a shack in Africa somewhere. But he cares somehow about Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
So he cares or he doesn't care. Anyway, copies of this piece of dreck were given to nursing homes, at least in Bellingham, Washington. A friend of mine works at one. And it riled all the seniors up, and they were like, see, we knew it all along, and others were going, that still had their wits about them. Hey, this is, classic propaganda, a shotgun approach all over the place. Now, that's how I saw it. It was loaned to me after. I've never dropped a DVD before with this. I was such a butterfingers. I dropped it, and it fell in the shiny side down.
Oh, that's a shame. No. Boy, I hate when that happens.
So, I'm really...
John.
Wow, I can't believe they gave it out in nursing homes. Talk about a conspiracy theory.
There's a whole separate issue,
hey,
right?
Hey, John, good to know about that.
Yeah, thanks. There's a whole propaganda thing going on with the Obama's America, right, with that movie. Because they were showing it in a ton of theaters. They were giving it out to groups. They were giving it out to people. They just wanted to get as many people to see it. People were buying up copies to hand out for free. They just wanted to get the propaganda as many hands as they could.
Oh, man. Hey, another thing going on here, we'll be talking a little bit more about Dinesh D'Souza a little bit later on. Yesterday at the briefing, I raised a question about a judicial nominee of President Obama's. There's a guy named David Barron. The president has appointed to for the appeals court. And this guy could be trouble. He's creating a lot of questions for some Democrats. Republicans oppose him basically because President Obama nominated him. We understand that. But there's some Democrats and Rand Paul, who still really should be kind of, I think, more an independent than a Republican, but at any rate, who've raised questions about David Barron because he is the guy in the Justice Department who wrote the memo that said it's okay for the United States to use drones to kill American citizens overseas. And of course, we have killed, I think it's 3 or maybe 4 Americans, including that radical cleric, Anwar al-Awlaki, and his 16-year-old son. I think there were a couple of others, at least those 2. And until now, for a while, the administration refused to release that memo, and they have continued to refuse to release Then they made that available to senators only privately. They could go privately read this memo. But they've refused to release any other memos related to using drones as killing machines that David Barron wrote at Justice. And according to the Second Circuit Court, which ruled that the administration has to publicly release that al-Awlaki memo, Barron wrote anywhere from 3 to 11 different memos. So far, senators have only seen one of them. I asked this question yesterday. Let's start with my first question to Jay Carney, whether or not, so there are two issues. Will the administration let senators see all of his memos, not just that one, and will privately, and then publicly, will the administration do what the Second Circuit said it had to do, is publicly to us, so all of us can read the one memo related to the killing of U.S. citizens, namely Anwar al-Awlaki. I start off with Jay Carney. David Barron is also held up in the Judiciary Committee. The White House has released the one memo related to the the drone attack. Does the White House plan to release, as some senators have suggested, any and all memos written by David Barron, drone related? Jay Carney, you will see. He's been asked this question before, and he always fudges and says, we've released everything basically we were required to release, and certainly anything related to U.S. citizens. That's the key phrase, only U.S. citizens.
The administration is working to ensure that any remaining questions members of the Senate have about Mr. Barron's legal work at the Department of Justice are addressed. Last year, as you know, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee had access to the memo you referred to, and I would note that in his committee vote, Mr. Barron received unanimous Democratic support.
Yes, but, and then Jay Carney goes on about, again, releasing all documents, again, listen carefully, U.S. citizens related.
The administration has made available unredacted copies of all written legal advice issued by Mr. Barron regarding the potential use of lethal force against U.S. citizens in counterterrorism operations. And anticipating any question about public release, I would refer you to the Justice Department. But all written legal advice issued by Mr. Barron has been made available to members of the Senate as part of their deliberation.
Yes, and I follow through. No, Jay, I ask you about not just the U.S. citizens, any and all memos. He still won't answer. And advice for the use of drones against non-U.S. citizens, have those memos been released, or will they be released as well?
Again, I think you're using release a little loosely, but
made available to the Senate is what I mean. Senators.
What I can tell you is that all written legal advice issued by Mr. Barron on the issue of potential use of lethal force against U.S. citizens in CT operations has been made available. For more information, I'd refer you to the Department of Justice.
Public release as for
I'd refer you to the Department of Justice. You know, there was obviously a Second Circuit opinion, and Justice is evaluating that opinion.
So that's the easy. That's the easiest. Refer you to Justice.
Yeah.
Refer you to VA. Refer you anywhere, but let him. But this is a serious issue. It just seems to me that on this issue, we the American people we've raised this question about drones before. This is serious stuff, and this is a chance with the man who wrote these memos, authorizing again the use of drones in countries that we're not at war with, that we can send these drones in to kill a suspected terrorist. We've killed a lot of civilians as collateral damage, we know, and also use them to kill American citizens. These documents ought to be made public, and certainly I think all senators should have a right to see any and all of these documents before they vote on putting this man on the federal bench. So we'll keep the pressure on at the White House on that issue of David Barron. And when we come back, speaking of the White House, speaking of the briefings, David Jackson covers the White House for USA Today, joins us coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Humm for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 13 minutes before the top of the hour. President Obama doing what he loves to do today, inviting a big sports team, the Super Bowl champions, Seattle Seahawks, to the White House this afternoon. That's always a good time. And for the good times and the bad times at the White House, you can count on David Jackson. He covers them all for USA Today. Hello, David.
Hello, Bill.
There have been more bad times than good times lately, I guess, huh?
Very much so. And I don't know if you saw it, but there's been a late edition of the
I'm just going to ask you about it. Update on the schedule. Tell us about it.
Yeah, 10 o'clock this morning, Eric Shinseki and Rob Neighbors, who are involved in the VA mess, are going to be at the White House speaking with President Obama. It's listed as a closed press meeting, but I wonder if we'll hear from the president today about all the allegations swirling around the VA.
Well, you know, Jay Carney has said that we will hear from the president this week. He almost has to say something coming in or out of this meeting, don't you think?
This would be a good opportunity to do it, yes, I would think so. I was struck by the fact they noted it as a closed press meeting, but that could well change between now and then.
Why do you think this was added to the schedule?
Good question. One reason, Rob Neighbors is going to be leaving for Phoenix later today, which is where the original allegations surfaced at the Phoenix VA. So it's a situation where we could look at both of them face to face while they're both in town. That's probably one reason. And of course, Obama's going to be out of town on Thursday. So.
And don't you think this is also there's been a lot of pressure from the media and from members of Congress for the president himself to get involved and to show that he's personally involved in this?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I'm surprised it's taken this long. Now, he has commented on it, but he did so at news conference in Malaysia that I believe started right after midnight our time on an early Sunday morning. So not a lot of people saw his comments. So yeah, it's surprising it's taken this long for him to speak out on it.
Yeah, I was surprised that they haven't gotten out ahead of this earlier. Because
but part of the problem is I don't think they really know the depth and scope of the problem. I think there's a lot of concern at the White House. They don't know how many more allegations may be out there laying in wait.
Yeah, but the IRS scandal. I mean, this one to me hits home. It seems to me more for more people just because of our regard for rightfully so, right, for veterans and those.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, it's very concerning. It's the allegations people can relate to. Delayed treatment and veterans have died as a result. Another potential problem is that people forget in recent years the administration has talked about how they've reduced all these wait times for veterans.
Yes.
Now there's allegations that some of the books have been cooked to make it look like these wait times have been shortened when they haven't. I think if that turns out to be the case, that's going to be a real problem.
Now, in a classic only in Washington story, David, there are reports out this morning, the president stopped by a Little League game the other day, right?
Yes.
It just so happened there are a lot of famous sons and daughters at that.
Yes.
On that field.
Well, it's suburban Washington, so that one, because it was really shocking me. It was that Jay Carney's daughter was one of the Little Leaguers on the site. So.
Right. In addition to David Pluff's son, I think, and David Gregory's son. And,
Jim Wallace, who's
the
spiritual advisor to the president. He's one of the coaches of the Little League teams out there, yeah. Well, he could have gone to any Little League field and probably encountered the same thing. In this particular stadium, it was kind of on the way to a fundraiser where he was, where the motorcade was heading, so it was convenient for him to stop at this particular place, and it just so happened.
How many, these are what we know in the trade as OTRs, right?
Right.
Which off the record, I always think of them as off the reservation.
Sometimes they are off the reservation.
How much advanced planning goes into this? Did these kids and their parents know the president was coming?
No, most of them probably didn't. I want to say Jace said his wife did not know he was coming. So
yeah,
they really want to keep it hush hush because for obvious reasons. You don't want if the word got around that the president was going to show up at a place, some bad people may show up at that same place.
But when he turns up like a little diner or a coffee shop, they have to know he's coming in, right?
The more astute customers would know because they'll see guys in dark suits and sunglasses looking around, walking around and looking around, although they're discreet too. But a lot of people really don't know. I mean, the owners would know, of course.
Owners would know, yeah.
But a lot of regular people may not. Maybe it may take a lot of people by surprise. I mean, it's surprising how I've been at a situation. It was in Texas to be sure, but and Bush popped up at a place where I just happened to be, and I really had no idea. So it's surprising how well they can keep a secret on these kind of things.
Right. So the other thing, the president seems to have a little trouble with a couple of his judicial nominees.
For various reasons.
Yeah. The Michael Boggs case down in Georgia is one that they're really having a hard time. When John Lewis came out and said he could not vote for this guy, it looks like they're going to have a hard time getting him through. Of course, Lewis doesn't have a vote because he's in the House.
Right, exactly. But it's all a deal because both of Georgia's senators are Republicans, and they'll have a big say in who the judges are. And I know the White House worked for months, if not years, with both the Georgia House members and the Georgia senators trying to fashion a deal where they could get some judicial slots filled. I think it involved 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
Some the Democrats wanted and some the Republican senators wanted. And one of the latter group was this Boggs guy. I mean, it's a very complicated deal. I want to say it involves 6 judicial nominees. It just so happens this guy is controversial because some of the stances he's taken, and it's kind of. And if this particular judge goes down, I wonder how it's going to affect all the other nominees from that state. It could really be kind of a mess.
So finally, sports fan Obama going up to the Baseball Hall of Fame tomorrow, huh?
Well, this ties into the Little League thing. It's been baseball week all week at the yesterday's Little League visit was kind of a preview. He's going up to the Baseball Hall of Fame tomorrow to talk about tourism, which is kind of a good idea because that's one of the most attended tourist sites in the country, the Baseball Hall of Fame. But also talk about international tourism, which is a little unusual to me because I can't imagine too many foreigners coming over here to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it happens. Maybe a lot of people from Japan want to go over there. But anyway, tourism is the subject tomorrow, and he's going to be in Cooperstown tomorrow afternoon. And then he's flying to Chicago, Bill, and if you look at the baseball schedule, the New York Yankees are playing his beloved Chicago White Sox tomorrow night in Chicago. You know, I think it may be Derek Jeter's last trip to Chicago. He's the great retiring. So there's a lot of speculation that it may be a very full baseball day tomorrow for the president.
You heard it here first on the Bill Press Show from David Jackson.
Just a guess, but I think the more people, it's getting around on Twitter, so the more people guess that might kill the idea. But.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's good. All right, David, thanks so much for joining us this morning. I'll see you a little bit later.
Great. Thanks, Bill.
All right, 12:45 is our little briefing today at the White House.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Bauhaus was one of the most definitive design movements of the modern age, reaching its peak between the two world wars. The word Bauhaus, loosely translated from German, means house of construction or school of building. Bauhaus was a new type of art school. Historically, European art academies taught each design subject separately. The Bauhaus offered foundation training in many art and design disciplines. They believed in variety. Understanding mass production was part of the curriculum, and the school sought to develop students who could unify art with craft while embracing new technology. It was also the beginning of the art school as an alternative way of life. Germany at that time was a pretty conservative place. And before the Nazis said "Nein" to the Bauhaus, it was arguably the most celebrated art school in the world. Bauhaus thinkers believed the world needed to be fundamentally rethought. Unnecessary ornamentation was out. Minimalism was in. Good design required simplicity and geometric purity. One of the best-known icons of Bauhaus design is the cantilevered chair. Designed by someone named Breuer, it was inspired by the steel tubes of his bicycle, and ultimately led to the first lightweight, mass-produced metal chair. Despite his success, Breuer concluded that eventually chairs would become obsolete, and everyone would soon be sitting on supportive columns of air. Bauhaus was all about innovation and inspiration. Nowadays, Bauhaus influences can be seen everywhere, from road signs and graphic design to big windows and even bigger buildings. In architecture, the international style, as it became known, influenced skylines the world over. Bauhaus was about ideas, reform, exploration and vitality, about making more tidy sense of the rapidly evolving world around us, and giving us more cool stuff for our apartments.
Tune in to the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
All right, that's it for hour number one. Coming up in the next hour, Julian Hattem from The Hill will be here, and then Zach Carter from Huffington Post. We're going to be talking about more about the DOJ filing criminal charges against 5 members of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Also talk about energy issues and whether we can expect any action on the minimum wage, all coming up in our next hour here, so stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday, May 21. Here we go with another edition of the Bill Press Show. Good to see you today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of the program as we tackle the big stories of the day on this Wednesday, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, or around the globe. We are there. We are on top of it. We'll tell you what's going on and give you a chance to tell us what you think about it all. Coming to you live on Free Speech TV all across this great land of ours. Of course, you find us on your satellite dish on DirecTV or the Dish Network, and worldwide on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Oh, some of the big news among the big items we'll cover today. Dinesh D'Souza, that firebrand conservative commentator who was charged in January for laundering campaign contributions to a U.S. Senate candidate. At the time, all the right-wingers, Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, rushed to defend him, saying he was just being targeted by the Obama administration. He did nothing wrong. Well, yesterday, D'Souza pleaded guilty and said he knew what he was doing was wrong. He just thought he could get away with it. So much for the big conspiracy theory. President Obama at the White House today will welcome the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks to the White House. And then later this afternoon, he will create a proclamation creating a new national monument at the Organ Mountains National Monument out in central New Mexico. On the VA front, President Obama trying hard to get the White House on top of that, sending his Deputy Chief of Staff, Rob Neighbors, to Phoenix later today to personally look into those allegations that some 40 veterans may have died because of delays in their health treatment. We'll wrap it all up, bring it to you. You give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. On with the show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones?
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Humm for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
And online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Breaking news, President Obama to meet with the Veterans Administrator, General David Shinseki, this morning at 10 o'clock in the Oval Office. Uh-oh, what's going on? Good morning, everybody. What do you say? It is Wednesday, May 21. Good to see you today. And thank you for joining us. This is the Bill Press Show. Here we are on your local progressive talk radio station. Here we are with you on the TuneIn app and the Progressive Voices channel. Here we are with you on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TAWKR, TawkrTV. On this Wednesday morning, there's lots going on. We'll bring you up to date on the news of the day, and we'll give you a chance to tell us what it all means to you. We love to hear from you wherever you happen to be. And whether you're listening or watching or driving or at home or already at the office, whatever, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Sound off about the issues of the day. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. So much news going on today. We needed some help to get through it all. Julian Hattem covers The Hill for The Hill, of The Hill newspaper, thehill.com. And it's good to have you back in the studio, Julian. Nice to see you.
Always great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We have Dave, regular team here, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Alicia Cruz on the phones. Cyprian Bolding, our videographer behind the scenes, no less valuable, keeping us looking good on the video cam and everything. We mentioned you covering The Hill know that Senator Marco Rubio the other day was asked about, I think by Jonathan Karl, about, was it Jonathan Karl, I think, in his interview about pot?
Yeah.
Right, and said there is no reasonable way to enjoy recreational marijuana. It just doesn't exist that anybody could just sit back and enjoy marijuana. And they refused to answer the question, which you have probably asked him, whether or not he personally ever tried it. Jimmy Fallon said, I think we know the answer to that question. Here he is last night.
Well, this made me laugh. Florida Senator and potential presidential candidate Marco Rubio just gave an interview where he refused to reveal if he's ever smoked pot. Yeah, he said he won't answer because it's a big deal if he says yes, and if he says no, people will think he's lying. So in other words, he definitely smoked pot, right? He's the weed dude now.
Weed.
Mr. Weed.
Mr. Weed.
Marco Weed BO.
You call him that next time you see it.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll do me favors. Yeah.
I know how that goes.
Rubio keeps stepping in it day after day after day. Yeah, man. I gotta tell you.
So, the pressure's on him. It's hard. There's no right steps, I feel like, something like that. He's in it no matter what he does.
Let me tell you, I've told this story on the air before. As a one-time candidate, thinking of running for, what was I was thinking of running for U.S. Senate, actually, in California at the time. And I got a call from a reporter with a question, have you ever have you ever smoked marijuana? And he said, I'll give you a couple of days to call me back with your answer. And I said, no. I don't need that time. The answer is yes. And I was the only candidate who right away fessed up and said, sure I have.
I'm surprised you didn't say, what, today? What time is it?
Since when?
Yeah.
What are you doing today? I don't know.
Let me go smoke some pot and I'll call you back.
So the answer is just to answer the question.
Yeah.
Who gives a damn, right?
It's so funny. Like Barack Obama, when he was running, I mean, he answered it better than any politician ever.
Yeah.
He said, did you smoke pot? He said, yeah. I said, as the Bill Clinton.
I was in college, right?
Right. There was the Bill Clinton, I didn't inhale. And Obama just said, yeah, I inhaled. That was the point.
Yeah. So this whole thing that Marco Rubio, even today, would be afraid to say whether or not he tried it.
Yeah.
And the way the drug laws are changing in this country, it's interesting. With Colorado and Washington,
I know.
There could be a point where, it could be a liability to have never smoked pot. It makes you seem weird and out of touch. And
I think we're getting there.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. I think we're pretty soon, unless you have smoked pot and are married to a man or a woman, you will not be able to run for office. That's it.
You heard it here first.
The times are changing. Yeah, indeed. Julian Hattem here with us for this first half hour, and then we have reporters coming in from Huffington Post and Politico and National Journal. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Speaking of pot, by the way, the FBI has a problem. The FBI, they tend to hire hackers and people who can work behind the scenes to work on, sort of covert operations, right? But here's the problem. To join the FBI, you cannot have smoked pot in the last 3 years. Turns out a lot of hackers like to smoke pot.
Really?
So they're having a hard time filling the roles of these hackers that are working for the FBI. James Comey, FBI director, told an audience at the White Collar Crime Institute, he said, quote, I have to hire a great workforce to compete with those cyber criminals. He's talking about the ones in China. And some of those kids want to smoke weed on the way to the interview, end quote. So they're having a little bit of an issue there to find people who are really good at computer hacking who also don't smoke weed.
Mm-hmm. I think smoking weed on the way to the interview is a great idea.
We just like his energy. He was so low-key and calm.
No, it's it.
He wasn't nervous at all.
You want to relax? All right.
Really thirsty, though, for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. He ate a microwave burrito in the middle of the interview. It's the weirdest thing ever. Moving over to France, there's some good news, bad news from France. France has decided that they're going to invest in some infrastructure, right? They're going to build new trains to run on their system, right? So they ordered 2,000 new trains, except they ordered the wrong train.
Oh, no.
And they don't fit on the tracks.
No.
2,000 trains that do not fit on the track. They are having to refit all of the rails to make them work with the new trains because that is cheaper than getting rid of the trains and starting from scratch. So good for them on one level, but you just double check those numbers.
Are you sure this wasn't Poland?
Sorry, Poland.
Can we still tell Polish jokes?
Yeah. I know they're watching. And a very interesting move from the WNBA, the Women's Basketball League. They are now starting a campaign to market specifically to the LGBT community. They are the first professional sports league to do so. We've seen in the past, like the NBA, have started a marketing campaign towards Latinos. Every couple games every year, they have either Los Heat or Los Spurs or whoever the teams are. They have sort of a Latino outreach. This is the first professional league that are reaching out specifically to the LGBT community. They cite high attendance and viewership among the lesbian community. And they want to reach out specifically, welcome them.
How about that?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. There we are. Times they are changing. Indeed. So, Julian, you've been covering a lot of stuff on the Hill lately, writing a lot of good stuff. But I want to start with maybe the biggest news of the week. Eric Holder announcing a very historic action on the part of the Justice Department to file criminal charges against 5 hackers. Back to your point about hackers. But these hackers are all members of the People's Liberation Army in China. Here's the Attorney General making the announcement first of all.
Today we are announcing an indictment against 5 officers of the Chinese People's Liberation Army for serious cybersecurity breaches against 6 American victim companies.
Now, I find this very unusual and very curious. How are they going to bring these people to justice?
I mean, probably ultimately they won't. That's kind of the thing here. But as you note, these are 5 top members of the Chinese military, the PLA, and they probably will never actually be extradited to the U.S. They've never seen the U.S. before. They've never been here. So it's largely really a symbolic move to kind of throw the U.S.'s weight around and publicly shame, essentially, China. The U.S. has really known that the Chinese military has been trying to hack into American companies and American military systems for years, and this has been one of the big problems in the U.S.-China relationship. And this is really kind of a historic step, as you say. These are the first charges ever formally filed against a foreign government for spying. And so it makes them look bad, and it kind of calls them out on the issue and says, hey, we're not going to take this anymore.
But it may make them look bad, but doesn't it make us look a little silly in the sense that we made up these wanted posters, right? They're going to put up in post offices around the country. I mean, the fact is, we have no authority, no jurisdiction to go over there and round them up, and they're certainly not going to volunteer to come over here and stand trial.
Sure. I mean,
so everybody knows it's going nowhere. Right.
Yeah, and it's automatically, the Chinese have been really upset. They say, we would never do this. This is not true, which is debatable. And then they say, hey, you guys have the NSA. You spy on everyone. What are you saying? Who are you to say this? But some analysts, some U.S.-China analysts I've talked to have said that it could go a big way to at least getting this out in the open. This has been a problem for a long time. At least if the countries are talking about it and in the openly and, shaming China, maybe that's some chance for some movement.
And at the White House, we were told by Jay Carney that you mentioned NSA, I want to come there, that what NSA does is totally related to national security. Mm-hmm. What the Chinese are doing, and the reason we have a problem with it, is that they're spying on U.S. companies and stealing trade secrets from U.S. companies, which we never, never, never do. But if you read the Edward Snowden documents, and the New York Times has a good piece on the very front page today. For example, we invaded the NSA invaded the computers of Petrobras, which is Brazil's largest national oil company. They also are known to have spied on Total, which is the French biggest oil and gas company. PacNet, which is a Hong Kong-based operator of undersea fiber optic cables, the NSA is spying. So are we doing the same thing that we're accusing the Chinese of doing?
As you say, the difference is essentially that the U.S. says even those actions, even the spying, there's also they say it's only for national security, for anti-terrorism purposes, and because China and some of these other countries, the relationship between the state and the companies is a lot cozier than it might be in the U.S. That it is different, and people I've talked to say that's probably the case. It's not necessarily to help out American gas and companies or Google or whatever, but it still looks bad. I mean, and I think a lot of people would say it doesn't matter why you're going into my computer system, you're still going in there, and that's an invasion.
And then you have, on top of that, of course, all NSA with its monitoring of all phone records in this, which you also know thanks to Edward Snowden, and of all email activity, Is there any? President Obama has still defended them, but is there any chance that Congress, where there are some critical members of Congress about what NSA is doing with this massive data collection, that Congress is going to, kind of rein in the NSA at all?
There's actually been some big movement on that front this week. There's a big reform bill called the USA Freedom Act. It's supposed to come up for a vote in the House on Thursday, I believe. And this was originally written by the author of the Patriot Act, Jim Sensenbrenner.
Oh, yeah.
Back in October or something. And it's been, for a long, long time, it was kind of the rallying point for the ACLU and a lot of civil liberties, privacy-minded folks. Mm-hmm. But the last couple of weeks, people have expressed increasing concerns that it's being watered down as it's moved through the process in order to win the support of some other lawmakers. So some of the privacy advocates have pulled their support in the last couple of days from this House version. But, I mean, it certainly is moving forward. It's likely to pass when it hits the floor on Thursday, and then the action moves to the Senate. But certainly there is some work being done there, and it would limit the NSA from collecting and storing every phone record about most Americans' calls. And it would go certainly a step forward, although I guess some folks say it's debatable exactly how much.
Well, it's significant that Sensenbrenner is the author because at the time when we first learned from Snowden what the NSA was up to, everybody said, well, they've got the authority to do this under the Patriot Act, and Sensenbrenner said, no.
Yeah, he said,
I wrote that act, and that's not what I not what I intended at all.
Whatever that one voting for.
That one section, I forget they kept.
There's 215 is one of the big sections, and also another section 702 of the FISA Amendments Act.
So Sensenbrenner says, so I'll show you what I meant by a new piece of legislation.
Yeah. He said this is necessary to clarify that like they didn't know that. If they had known that this is what the NSA thought this meant, they would have voted on it. And this is a poor interpretation of the law, is what he's saying. So they have to write the record there.
Right. Trying to rein in the NSA, it is tough, and with tough getting support in the Congress, also tough getting the White House on board. Julian Hattem covers this issue and a lot of others for The Hill, on The Hill. Your chance to join the conversation coming up at 866-55-PRESS. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, lawyer? He said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity, and one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him, because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Zach Carter from the Huffington Post, senior political economic reporter, joining us in the next segment. Right now we're talking NSA and other technology issues with reporter from The Hill, Julian Hattem, covering those issues on The Hill. Julian, and a couple of others on NSA. You have written that NSA is now expanded their spying to the Bahamas.
Yeah, so that was just the last day or two. There was this big report from more Edward Snowden documents that
this stuff keeps coming out.
It does.
He's not releasing any new stuff. We're just still discovering
the same kind of batch from last year. There's just thousands and millions of stuff.
Anyhow.
But this week, apparently, the NSA has the ability to not just record what's called the metadata, which is what they do in the U.S. It's who you call, where, how often, but also they can record the actual content of your call in the Bahamas on your cell phone, and they can hold that for a month. So if you go to the Bahamas and you make a phone call on your cell phone, they can essentially record everything you say, hold that for a month, and then the idea is it can then go back and listen to it later in case there's some indication that there might be some terrorist activity going on, is what they say.
That does it. I'm not going to the Bahamas.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That's it.
Never again. Trouble in paradise.
Trouble in paradise as well. And to give you, I guess, some proof of how the NSA now dominates among federal agencies, the House of Cards has changed their whole lineup, right?
Yeah, they're hiring. I don't know if there's any amateur actors in the room, but they want a new NSA director for, the new season of House of Cards.
I can think of one person, and
Bob
Cusack. And the two of you work for him.
I asked Bob Cusack, and he said, hey, I'm sending my editor, Bob Cusack, he's sending his headshot over. He was on Veep. I feel like there's only the natural progression.
He'd be the perfect head of the
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, they say they have one of those full casting descriptions. They're like, man or woman, 45 to 55. I think he would fit just great.
All right, we got
or
it.
anyone else out there in Radio Land wants to play the NSA director, fire away. Netflix wants to hear it from you.
Okay. Now, while you're giving predictions here, what's going to happen with the two big media mergers? Comcast, Time Warner, AT&T, DirecTV, which impacts us because we're on DirecTV. Are they going to get approved?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it still remains to be seen. The AT&T DirecTV deal proposal was just announced over the weekend. Right. And so that both of them have to go through FCC and probably Department of Justice review first. But it's going to be a month-long process, but it's going to be we'll see what it comes out. Probably by the end of the year, we'll have a full answer on that.
Yeah, and we'll see how it comes out and how it's going to impact consumers. We don't really know yet.
Yeah.
Julian, great work. Thanks so much. TheHill.com is where you can follow Julian's work. We'll be right back. Thanks.
Is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis. Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but like, go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about, you know, your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. You know, I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org. to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour, Wednesday morning, May 21. Good to have you with us this morning. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio in Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building. And we're brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists. Good men and women of the Machinists Union under President Tom Buffenbarger, sharpening America's edge on the global economy. And you can find out more about their good work at their website, goiam.org. Big day on the political front yesterday around the country. Big day at the White House yesterday with some meetings with President Obama and business leaders. Here to bring us up to date on all of them, Zach Carter is senior political economy reporter at the Huffington Post. Hello, Zach. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Bill.
Welcome to the studio here. First visit?
Yeah, this is. I've never been here before, but so far I'm quite impressed.
All right, let's end
easily impressed.
Let's end it right now.
Yeah,
because
end on a high note.
Let's talk first about the president's meeting yesterday with the business leaders at the White House. In fact, I think we had a little take here from the president where he's talking about, and I think his message to these business leaders is the United States is a good place to locate and to bring jobs. Here he is as he opened the meeting.
We have the most dynamic and creative and innovative economy in the world, but we don't always do what it takes to go after business around the world and make sure that they know the benefits of investing in the largest market on earth.
Well, the president's saying, come here, locate your businesses here. Is it going to work?
Well, I think when the president has a meeting with business leaders, a lot of the policy making around this is kind of informal. It's kind of a diplomatic mission in a lot of ways. You don't necessarily get what you want in international relations negotiations by just offering people free stuff. You kind of have to build a relationship with people. And the president hasn't had a particularly great relationship with a lot of the CEO community. I think a lot of that is on the CEO community just sort of being easily wounded by mild suggestions that maybe things haven't been going so great in the United States and the corporate world over the last 30 years. And I think especially after the financial crash, you saw tensions with Wall Street executives. But in this meeting, he's talking to international executives. He's talking to people at like Ford Motor Company was there, and Ford there have been some tensions between the administration and Ford over trade policy. For instance, Ford is really worried that the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal is going to send is going to put them at a competitive disadvantage with Japanese automakers, for instance. So I think this sort of reach out is in some ways just a way to maintain good relationships with the corporate world. But I also think it's important that the president emphasized stuff other than tax policy. A lot of times when you hear, especially on the Hill, we need to bring jobs here to America, all you ever hear is we need to have a lot of big tax giveaways for corporations. And everybody likes free money. I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but there are other things that are attractive about the United States as a place to do business. We have relatively good infrastructure here. We have markets that actually work, except when they don't, like in 2008. And he was trying to sell businesses on that aspect of American commerce.
Right. We have a great education system. We got great natural resources. We've got, on and on and on, right?
Pretty national parks that your workers can go to.
There you go. It was asked at the briefing yesterday, and Jay Carney didn't really give an answer, whether or not the TPP was part of this conversation yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think it's hard to have a conversation with international businesses and not and avoid something that's that big. I mean, we're talking about 11 other nations that are involved, and the administration has sort of waffled on what the TPP is supposed to do. Sometimes they talk like it's a foreign policy effort to isolate China. Sometimes they talk like it's supposed to be a blueprint for all economic activity in the future that they want China to be part of. It's not at all obvious to me what the administration actually wants to get out of the TPP. And I think with a deal this big, there are different factions within the administration that want different things. So I think the idea that they didn't talk about it would be very silly. But particularly when someone like Ford is there. Ford is their most, I think, vocal domestic corporate critic of that deal, and unions have been very critical. There have been a lot of environmental groups that are critical of what they've seen of the deal so far. But usually on Capitol Hill, the rubber hits the road when corporate America gets involved because they've got all the money, and right. So the idea that they wouldn't talk about that with Ford seems strange to me.
Now this is an effort on the president's part. What's it called? Select USA, right? Mm-hmm. A movement that he launched to try to lure businesses here in this country. What are we doing to stop the flow of American businesses taking jobs and investments overseas?
Well, the president and the Treasury Department would say that they're doing a lot of work on currency manipulation. That if you look at where China's currency is now relative to a couple of years ago, that things are getting closer to parity. That it's not so out of whack. And with currency, you have this capacity. Essentially, if you want to manipulate your currency and devalue it, you can make it very attractive for companies to invest where you are because you can effectively pay your workers less without lowering their standard of living. And so that's something that China has done, something Japan has done. They do this, by the way, by purchasing American debt. So there are benefits that the United States economy gets from this in some sense.
But I'm talking about American firms that are taking jobs overseas and or parking their money overseas and getting tax advantages for it. They still are today, right?
Oh, right. And it was interesting.
And are we doing anything about taking those away to keep American jobs here?
Well, I unfortunately, usually when people talk about the offshore tax haven problem, there's over $1 trillion in corporate money from American firms stashed abroad. You hear people saying, well, if we just cut people a break on this tax money, then they'll invest here and we'll have more jobs here. And Bill Clinton brought this up actually at Pete Peterson's sort of deficit hawk conference the other week, and he said we should really give a corporate tax holiday to these guys and let them bring the money back at a reduced rate. The problem with that is that the Bush administration tried that in 2005, and what we saw was actually that the U.S. Treasury Department actually ended up losing tax revenue from this, even though they got money from this. The studies that have been done show that actually less money came back than would have if they just let companies bring the money back normally. They would have seen more tax revenue at the higher rate, the normal rate, and you didn't really get any new investment from it. The money that came back then just went to buying back stock, to paying executives, to paying out dividends to shareholders. So the money all sort of stayed within the Wall Street investor class rather than being some sort of investment in new factories or infrastructure or research and development that would have benefited the economy at large.
Now, in line with this, and it's okay because we didn't talk about this ahead of time, and it's okay if you tell me you know nothing about it. But one thing that I've been keeping my eye on and that troubles me, in line with this, is that Pfizer is trying to buy AstraZeneca, which would create the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. Pfizer, an American company, wanting to buy the British firm AstraZeneca. And it seems that the obvious reason for that is that Pfizer can take all of its money and escape billions and billions of dollars in taxes by basically becoming a British company.
Well, there are all sorts of things.
And nobody is raising any hell about that. I mean, but first of all, AstraZeneca has said, no, we don't want this deal. And Pfizer's come back with 3 different deals, and they keep sweetening the pot. But the only opposition so far has come from AstraZeneca, who doesn't want to get bought, not from American lawmakers or administration officials who say, no, you can't, escape your tax obligations by fleeing overseas.
Well, I mean,
why do we let these people get away with these deals?
It depends in some sense because it's not like Pfizer doesn't already have lots of offshore subsidiaries which they use to game the tax system as best they can. I mean, particularly when you're talking about pharmaceuticals, intellectual property is a huge part of their business. They get these patents and they have other intellectual property protections that they can then license back to themselves if they just create new subsidiaries somewhere else. And they say, oh well, I had this big cost from to purchase this thing, and we better expense that cost. And it turns out the cost came from the same company. So there are all sorts of offshore games that you can already play if you're Pfizer. But I think from a lobbying perspective, from an international lobbying perspective in particular, this has the potential. This should raise some alarms with public health advocates who worry about the cost of medicine, for instance, because you already see in deals like the TPP that we were talking about earlier, the pharmaceutical lobby has an enormous amount of influence over the types of intellectual property standards that are set in this. And that can increase the price of medicine. When you give somebody the exclusive right to market a life-saving drug, they can charge whatever they want, and they're going to charge the highest price they possibly can. That's not necessarily the goal of developing these drugs in the first place. You develop these drugs so that people can be saved, so that people don't die for no reason. And so the 2 parts of the world that lobby the hardest for these very strict intellectual property protections are the United States and Europe. And the rest of the world where these drugs need to go out, places like India, there's been a very long series of negotiations between the U.S. and India over whether India can bring cancer drugs to market at lower prices than what, say, Bayer wants to charge for them. If you make $1,400 a year in India and Bayer wants to charge you $67,000 for your cancer drug, you're just going to die.
Right.
And that's what's going to happen. And so I think if you the prospect of a multinational conglomerate between the U.S. and the U.K. on that would give them a significant amount of power to reshape the global standards on this, and would make the development of new drugs really something that, or further the idea that the development of new drugs is something for rich people, not something for the global poor.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that Americans are still not allowed to buy and import drugs from Canada at a cheaper price than they're able to get for prescription drugs in this country. Is just
same drugs.
I know,
Same drugs.
Yeah, absolute. It's just again the power of the pharmaceutical industry. Zach Carter is here from Huffington Post, senior political and economic reporter. Questions or comments about the power of these drug companies and other things, always welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, at the top of the next hour, Tarini Parti from Politico will be joining us as well. A little kind of round table of reporters this morning from various outlets. Right now we're talking with and visiting with Zach Carter, senior political economic reporter for Huffington Post, part of the team led by Arthur Delaney. Do you work for Arthur?
I don't work for him. I work across from him. I would like to say that he works for me because we play in a band and he's the drummer, so I get to boss him around.
That's right. Yeah, always boss the drummer around.
He's the drummer.
Yeah.
I thought,
No, he's the drummer.
The drummer.
I even sing sometimes. I mean, he is definitely lower on the totem pole there than I am.
The drummer's always the bottom of that rung.
Which is funny because they do kind of actually lead the band in a rock band. I mean, if the drummer screws up, you kind of got to just go with them. They dictate everything.
It's true.
What's the name of this band?
Drunk Tigers. It's an important name.
Arthur's never plugged his band before. He comes here every week.
I plug it everywhere I can go. I'm a lot I get more shameless, less shameful. I don't know which way to say it than Arthur is.
Okay, right. Can people find this music anywhere?
It's on the internet. You can go to drunktigers.bandcamp.com. You can go to our Facebook page. You can just Google a YouTube for it.
Drunk Tigers.
Drunk Tigers.
There's little I know. We
have to ask Arthur about it.
Yeah.
You sound kind of like the Replacements.
But we've got the monitors up with all the morning shows. They always have bands in. And
people are always plugging their books and stuff. You know?
No, I'm not talking about plugging. I'm talking about performing in studio.
I'm looking at this studio. I don't see a whole lot of space in here for a band.
We're really loud.
I like loud. We like loud. I just don't know where we fit it.
The soundproofing would help. I mean, the sound treatment in here. But I mean, Arthur, when he hits the cymbals, I mean, it's like piercing thunder in your ears.
Look, if Fox and Friends can do it, we can do it.
Right.
Let's do it.
Keep hope alive.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the model you want to be going with there, Bill.
Yeah, good point.
I'm just turning in terms of entertaining our musical friends. I'm just looking to. All right.
We'll work on it.
We'll work on it. We'll figure it out. A lot of political primaries yesterday. I know you've been keeping on top of those. Pennsylvania. We got the governors and then the congressional race as well. Where do we start? Either one.
I think the congressional race is a little lower profile because obviously it's not as big a deal as the governor. But I think it has more implications for the Democratic Party than the governor's race does, because Marjorie Margulies was widely considered to be the front runner for this for a long period of time. She's a former member of Congress,
and most importantly, she is
friendly with the Clintons in that she is the mother-in-law of Chelsea Clinton.
She's family. Yeah. And the only race that Hillary Clinton had anything to do with this year.
Right. She went out and stumped for Marjorie Margulies, and people sort of thought that was it. That was gonna settle things. The race had been close for a while. Well, here comes Hillary Clinton. Now that'll just put the icing on the cake for Margulies, and it did not do that. She lost, and she lost pretty badly. There was the progressive candidate in the race that the hard left Democratic Party got behind. Dalen Leach did not win. He was endorsed by Alan Grayson. So you just have a state senator from Pennsylvania who ended up winning the race. I think the implication there is the stuff that I want to start speculating about now is what this means for Hillary Clinton's and the Clintons more generally, their influence within the Democratic Party. If this was where they decided to invest for this cycle, one, why didn't they invest in other places, and two, why did they lose? I think the fact that primary voters just didn't seem to care that Clinton had endorsed Marjorie Margulies is significant at this stage.
Right. And in the governor's race there was a four-way primary, all good candidates, I believe. Katie McGinty is a friend of mine, used to work for Al Gore, for President Clinton. Mm-hmm. She actually came in fourth. Former member of Congress Allison Schwartz was considered the favorite there, came in second. And Tom Wolf, I think, Lisa, we have a little clip there of Tom Wolf, a businessman, spent $10 million of his own money and ends up winning the primary. Here he is.
We have a big job between now and November 4th, and that is to make sure that we deliver on the promise that the Democratic voters of Pennsylvania have placed on all of our shoulders.
Tom Corbett, the governor, probably one of the least popular and worst governors in the country, and pretty vulnerable this time around, huh?
I would say very vulnerable, and I think that's why this was such a heated primary, because Democrats see this as a clear pickup opportunity. The old saying that Jim Carville had about Pennsylvania, that you've got Pittsburgh on one end and Philadelphia on the other, and Alabama in the middle. That seems to be changing a little bit. The state's very reliably Democratic at the presidential level, and so the fact that there's a statewide office that's currently in the hands of a Republican is something that I think it's one of the few sort of bright spots on the map for 2014 for Democrats. Right. They're basically on defense everywhere, but here in Georgia, there are a couple other places where it looks like they can go on offense. And I'm really surprised that Allison Schwartz didn't win, frankly. And I think this really does speak to the power of money in politics and just how much big money, not even necessarily big money. If you're just a wealthy candidate, you can self-finance your campaign, and a career politician like Allison Schwartz can be defeated.
But it's nice to see a good guy with money come into politics and actually win something. Hey, Zach, fun to have you in here. Come back again.
Great.
With the band next time, okay?
Right, sure. I'll bring my guitar.
At least we can do it unplugged.
All right. And when we come back, the president, a new addition to his schedule today. We'll tell you all about it when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, can you believe it? Hour number 2, almost down and out. We go into hour number 3 without all of our good friends on Free Speech TV, unfortunately. But we don't have to lose you, because you could join us on our video stream. We've got the backup for you. Go to youtube.com/Tawker, TawkrTV. In the next hour, we will get the latest rundown on all the big primaries yesterday across the land, the political landscape. And then we will also get the latest on Pennsylvania becoming the 19th state to recognize same-sex marriage as legal and constitutional. Lots more coming up. Stay with us. Hour number 3.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new. If I could have an extra 5 years to live. You said 5, right? 5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much. I would get more hamsters. I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood. I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna. I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, in the next hour, starting off the next hour with Tarini Parti from Politico reporter to cover all the big primaries yesterday. President Obama, very busy schedule today. It started out, he has an ambassador credentialing ceremony this morning at 11:35. Then he honors the Seattle Seahawks at 2:10 p.m., welcomes them to the White House, 2:10 this afternoon. At 4:10, he'll be signing a proclamation to declare a new national monument out in New Mexico. But what has just been added to his schedule, a very, very significant meeting at 10 o'clock this morning with the director, General Shinseki of the VA, and Rob Neighbors, his deputy chief of staff, who's been assigned to fix the problems at the VA.
This is the Bill Press Show.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org. to let us know your thoughts.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption, they lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving.
and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to, not eligible for Social Security. So the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Mitch McConnell wins in Kentucky, but he may lose in November. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? Here we go. It is The Bill Press Show on a Wednesday, May 21. Great to have you with us today on your local progressive talk radio station. And great to see you worldwide on our video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV. And also for those of you who've been smart enough to download the app TuneIn, you can find us on the Progressive Voices channel. It's a free app. Download it, and that way, wherever you are, don't have to worry about losing the signal or anything. You can listen to the show real time and catch it afterwards.
Yes, indeed.
Anytime on the Progressive Voices channel. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number if you want to join the conversation, and we invite your comments at any time. Also, love hearing from you on Twitter and on Facebook. On Twitter, at BP Show, and Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. On a Wednesday morning, hail, the gang's all here. Peter Ogburn, Elisa Murphy.
Hey. Hey, good morning.
Alicia Cruz there. She's waiting for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And on the video cam, Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, again, keeping us looking good on that video cam worldwide, TawkrTV. And joining us in studio as we do a little look back at yesterday's big primary, setting the stage for the battles in November, midterm elections, November 2014. Tarini Parti is a political reporter for Politico. Good morning, Tarini.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Hey, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. Yesterday, one on the political front, just to quickly mention that Dinesh D'Souza, well-known documentarian, columnist, commentator, conservative critic of President Obama's.
Columnist, commentator, conservative, criminal.
Criminal now, yes. Pleaded guilty yesterday to laundering money, campaign contributions. He actually gave people $20,000 and had them write checks to a Senate candidate. That is against the law. He got caught. He was charged with that by the Department of Justice in January. He pleaded guilty to it yesterday and said he knew what he was doing. He knew it was wrong. He just did it anyway, thinking he could get away with it. What makes it most interesting is that when he was charged in January, the right-wing media machine, the anti-Obama hate machine, went out and accused President Obama of picking on poor Dinesh D'Souza and painted him as a victim of basically President Obama's attack machine. Here's a little montage of Sean Hannity, Neil Cavuto, Laura Ingraham, and Rush Limbaugh.
The enemies list of the administration seems to be growing day by day, and the latest victim, Dinesh D'Souza.
Conservatives under attack. Commentator Dinesh D'Souza. D'Souza, of course, indicted for campaign finance fraud. The IRS reportedly targeting conservative Hollywood groups.
We are criminalizing political dissent in the United States of America.
They are. The justice system, as run by Democrats, is out trying to criminalize as many Republicans and conservatives as they can.
Oops. D'Souza himself says, yeah, I knew what I did was illegal. I was no victim.
Maybe Dinesh D'Souza is just the latest name to join in on the Dinesh D'Souza witch hunt. Maybe that's what's happening.
Maybe he's after himself. Okay. But the reason I wanted you to know about that is because it'll be very exciting today. I want you all to tune in today to Sean Hannity and to Laura Ingraham and to Rush Limbaugh and to Neil Cavuto, because you will hear them today begin their shows by apologizing to President Obama for accusing him of attacking Dinesh D'Souza unfairly. I'm sure they will apologize and admit their mistake today. Stay tuned. Yes. Tarini Parti is here for, it'll snow in hell if they do that. But if they do, I will apologize tomorrow for criticizing them.
I look forward to that.
Tarini Parti here from Politico, joining us at the top of the hour. Then we're joined by Sarah Mimms from the National Journal. We'll get right to the political news of the day. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Spoiler alert now, because I gave the results of Dancing with the Stars earlier in the show, and I got a little grief for it because I didn't say spoiler alert, okay? So I'm going to give a spoiler alert because last night was also...
But it happened last night, so people
yeah, but
should know.
I mean, it's whatever. Like, I'll take the heat.
Okay.
I'll take the heat. But spoiler alert now, because last night was also the season finale of The Voice, and they crowned a winner of The Voice. So if you don't want to know who won The Voice, turn back in like 15 seconds, because the winner was Josh Kaufman of Indianapolis. He's 38 years old, by the way, which is way old for these singing competition shows. But he came in first place. Christina Grimmie of New Jersey and Jake Worthington were the other two competing for the final three there.
I feel so out of it. I haven't watched one episode of The Voice.
I'm done with the singing competition, dancing competition.
Done with American Idol?
Done with American Idol.
Oh, we were done with American Idol
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Years ago, yeah.
We know more about the Italian version of The Voice than we do about the American.
Yeah, the nun.
Yes.
Right.
That's true. That is true.
Bring her on.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you knew this, but it is National Donut Week.
Oh, I knew that. Of course, I've been eating donuts.
Yeah, now you have an excuse. Well, to celebrate, Krispy Kreme unveiled a concoction that's very hard to get your hands on.
Oh.
It cost $1,685 for one donut.
What's that?
Why does it? I'm glad you asked. It includes a Dom Perignon Vintage 2002 Champagne Jelly and a raspberry and Chateau cream. It's also served with a cocktail of Dom Perignon and passion fruit. It's also, by the way, dusted with 24-karat gold leaf, topped with 23-karat gold dust, white chocolate, and edible diamonds. Edible diamonds.
Edible diamonds, yeah.
Because why not?
It's like you're eating jewelry.
Yeah, exactly.
Do I wear it or eat it?
I mean, if you're crazy, you do, but I don't know what you do with it. I mean, if you eat diamonds, I think you should go straight to a mental institution.
I'll just go to Dunkin' Donuts across the street here.
Donut for 50 cents.
Right.
I think you'll be okay. A new survey, the American Customer Satisfaction Index, is put out quarterly, and we have some bad news for Comcast and Time Warner Cable. They have been found to have the lowest customer satisfaction of any company in America.
Surprise, surprise.
No way.
And they have consistently led the pack, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. They put this out quarterly, and every quarter their ratings are lower and lower and lower and lower. Ahead of them, but only barely, is Bank of America, Sprint, and health insurance giant Aetna.
Okay.
That's not good company. It's not the company you want to be in.
Well, on the Comcast thing, I think everybody in this office must have voted, right?
Oh. I got a few things I could say about Comcast.
Please don't. Please don't. We have a little bit longer in the show we have to get through with our internet connection
That's right.
before. All right. Well, so, Tarini, the headline that seems to be coming out about yesterday's primaries is that the Tea Party got shellacked, that the Tea Party just got wiped out. When you look at the big picture before we go state by state, is that the takeaway from yesterday?
That's definitely the big takeaway. Big win for the establishment Republicans, and the Tea Party challengers in the end just got crushed. Big win also for incumbents. So in 2010 and 2012, we saw that groups like Club for Growth and other sort of conservative, powerful groups thought they could take on members of Congress, and they actually launched this initiative called Primary My Congressman last year. But in the end, all the incumbents are safe. They won. They spent a lot of money. They were aggressive about it, and they didn't take these challenges they took them seriously. They didn't take their win for granted.
And the headline in Politico this morning is "Payback Time: GOP incumbents learn how to win." Right. So they may have taken these Tea Partiers for granted before, and thinking, "Oh, they're so kooky, so radical, right? They're not They're not a real threat." But they learned their lesson, I guess, right?
They definitely learned their lesson from the last two cycles. They went in, aggressively fundraised, spent their money well. They went on air with ads. A lot of their allies pitched in. And so in the end, they were able to pull it off. This was not something we had seen in the past two cycles. So this was the first time, really, we saw the Republican Party really just going on an all-out war against itself in a way.
Mm-hmm. It was a civil war in the Republican Party, and the generals coming up. But let's start with Kentucky, which may be the highest profile, because there was people thought a serious challenge from Matt Bevins, Tea Partier, to Mitch McConnell. It didn't turn out that way. I don't know the final numbers, but McConnell crushed him. What happened?
So this was definitely a high-profile race, but in the end, the outcome wasn't really a surprise. The race actually got called within a minute of polls being closed.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was, it just happened immediately. We were out getting coffee, and all of a sudden, thinking we had a few minutes, all of a sudden, race got called.
Right.
So it happened.
I couldn't believe how early I got a flash on my cell phone. McConnell has won the primary, and it was minutes after 7 o'clock when the polls closed.
It was literally 1 minute after.
1 minute, really?
7:01, race got AP called the race. So it was very quick. This was a classic case in which Mitch McConnell raised a lot of money. He spent about $10 million just on the primary. What
are you mixing a martini over?
I'm getting my morning martini here.
Shaken, not stirred.
He went into it well prepared, and he came out on top.
But Matt Bevins turned out not to be such a great candidate, too. Correct?
Exactly, and his concession speech was pretty fun to watch last night. If you didn't catch it, you should maybe YouTube it. He gave a long, winding speech. Didn't quite endorse Mitch McConnell in the end, but said he wouldn't vote for a Democrat. So
is he going to go to work now for the Cockfighting Association?
Well, we'll see. I mean, if he does, that'll be another big victory for the McConnell campaign.
I like how Bevins at one point during his speech said, a couple months ago, people thought that I was crazy. And I was thinking, I think those people were vindicated.
And now everybody knows I'm crazy.
Exactly.
Now, McConnell, of course, sees this. Now, this is...
Sorry. Drop my phone.
What's going on here with this
The sky is falling.
It's the martini.
It's got to be.
But McConnell sees this now that his race has some huge significance, right? And, of course, he's not going to run against Allison Grimes. He's going to run against Barack Obama. Here's McConnell last night.
When the pundits and historians look back on the last 2 years of Barack Obama's presidency, and they try to explain how an administration that started out so extreme was finally made to listen and to do the people's will, they'll say it started right here in Kentucky.
Yeah, this is the man, right, who started out the Obama administration by saying our number one goal is to deny him a second term. And now his number one goal is to tame him in his last 2 years.
Yeah, and they're going to do everything they can to tie President Obama to Allison Grimes. He has a very low approval rating in Kentucky, so that's going to be their big motive there.
Right. And is she going to stand by President Obama?
That's gonna be a very tough, tightrope for her to walk. She's already, made some comments that are sort of right in the middle. She isn't really taking a side, so it's going to be tough to watch because, obviously she can't completely embrace him, but she can't run away from her own party.
Right.
Mitch McConnell was up there fighting about and yelling about those insiders in Washington last night. All those insiders. Like Mitch McConnell.
Like Mitch McConnell, right. Idaho, Pennsylvania, Georgia, other big primaries coming up here. We'll get into those. Go down the just across the map, political map this morning with Tarini Parti from Politico. Your comments, if you had a big fight, a big battle in your state, let us know how it came out at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Wednesday, May 21, 24 minutes after the hour now on the political front yesterday. We're taking a look at the landscape with Tarini Parti from Politico, Politico.com. Pennsylvania, governor's race. Where are we?
Tom Wolf pulled off a pretty big win. This was not that surprising yesterday, but going into it, Congresswoman Allison Schwartz was definitely the front runner. She had name recognition in the state. She was expected to pull in a lot of money, pull off a win. But in the end, Tom Wolf started spending a lot of actually his own money. He spent $10 million, advertised a lot, and pulled off a win by a huge margin. So that was, not exactly a surprise, but people were expecting Schwartz to sort of narrow that right. margin, and that never happened.
Tom Wolf versus Tom Corbett in November. Hillary Clinton, she
not
campaigned,
quite on the ballot.
Not on the ballot, but she campaigned in just one congressional race in the entire country for her daughter's mother-in-law.
Yep, the Clinton-in-law, Marjorie Margolis.
I like that, the Clinton-in-law.
Yeah.
She ended up losing last night. It was a very crowded Democratic primary. There was no real public polling, so it was unclear who would win. But she lost by a huge margin to a state representative, Brendan Boyle, who's very young. And so that was kind of a little bit of a surprise. It wasn't expected to be this wide of a margin. Hillary Clinton also held a fundraiser for her.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton did some campaigning. So, they weren't out on the trail with her every day, but they were definitely part of that campaign.
And no doubt. And she's definitely linked to them, to the Clintons, as you say, Chelsea's mother-in-law. Out in Idaho, this race got some attention. Again, a Tea Party challenger, correct?
Yes, this fit the narrative perfectly. It was Congressman Mike Simpson being challenged by Brian Smith, a trial lawyer who received the backing of Club for Growth. Club for Growth put in $500,000. This was part of the Primary My Congressman initiative. Mm-hmm. A lot of buzz about this race for about a year now. There was a lot of money going into it, and in the end, Simpson pulled off a win again by a huge margin. And so this definitely sent a clear message out to these conservative groups that, it's going to be really hard to sneak up on them.
What they don't want is another Christine O'Donnell.
Exactly, and they keep trying. Establishment Republicans know that that they can't let that happen again. So they know that they have to run strongly in the primary.
And in Georgia, the Republican primary there was the big news yesterday.
Yeah, that was another one of the big Senate races. David Perdue, former CEO of Dollar General, and Congressman Jack Kingston made it to the runoff. It was looking like Karen Handel, who was sort of the more socially conservative candidates, could make it to the ballot, but in the end, she could not beat out Jack Kingston.
So does this improve the Republicans' chances for possibly taking over the Senate this year, do you think?
Definitely. Both of these candidates are sort of the centrist establishment candidates. The Republican establishment had been hoping for either of these two really to make it to the ballot, and now we have both of them. So I don't really think they have a preference of who would win, because both of them have a solid chance of beating Michelle Nunn.
I'm disappointed more Tea Party people didn't win.
I know. It keeps things interesting, but we're kind of tired of writing the same narrative.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Thanks.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, May 21, Wednesday, The Bill Press Show. We're here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., just down the street from the United States Capitol building, and brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees. A lot of AFGE members here in Washington, D.C., but also all around the country. Under President J. David Cox, all of them proud to work for America every day. And you can find out about the many, many agencies they work for and all the good work they do at their website, afge.org. President Obama with a last-minute addition to his schedule today, very significant. He will be meeting at 10 o'clock this morning with the head of the Veterans Administration, General Shinseki, and also with that, joining that meeting, the President's Deputy Chief of Staff, Ron Neighbors, who has been deputized by the President to help Shinseki fix the problems at the Veterans Administration. Sarah Mimms has been covering these issues for the National Journal, joins us here in the studio this morning. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, good morning.
Good to have you with us. So this really shows, I guess, how seriously the White House is taking this.
Or at least how seriously the White House would like to show that they're taking this issue. Absolutely.
Good distinction.
Yeah, we still haven't heard a statement from the president himself. Obviously, Jay Carney has talked about this issue quite a bit, and there has been some rallying in the conservative media about why the White House, why Obama himself hasn't come out. So we could possibly see a statement out of him later today after this meeting. Secretary Shinseki was actually up on the Hill yesterday, actually in an unrelated capacity. He was up there for an appropriations meeting. But obviously he is very actively looking at this, and the administration's keeping a very close eye on this investigation.
He and the defense secretary were both on the Hill yesterday, right?
Right. They were actually up there for a previously scheduled, prior to the scandal blowing up in the last month or so, for a previously scheduled meeting with the Appropriations Committee about creating an electronic database of medical records that will be shared between DOD and the VA.
Right. But they were asked questions about this.
Actually, what I find so surprising is I talked to the House Appropriations Chairman, Hal Rogers, after the meeting. He said he didn't even bring it up. It wasn't discussed, which is something really interesting to me. So many people on Capitol Hill, while they are discussing this issue, they're very reluctant to way too far into it before this investigation comes to light. I wrote about this morning. I think part of the reason, and one of the reasons I was hearing from a lot of members, is that General Shinseki is such a decorated veteran.
Yeah.
He did 2 tours in Vietnam, lost part of a foot while he was there, continued to served for almost 40 years. It's really difficult for many of them, even far-right conservatives. I've talked to Steve King out of Iowa, who usually, is pretty quick with his opinion, right?
Yeah.
And he was saying, no, I'm going to wait for this investigation. I don't want to start attacking a Vietnam veteran before we hear all of what's happened and how involved he is.
Whoa. So what do we know about these charges? Allegedly 40 people died in Phoenix before they could get treatment. And there are rumors, at least, that this has happened in other facilities as well.
Right.
Have we established as fact any of this yet, or is it?
Well, the Inspector General who's investigating this matter said yesterday that they're looking at allegations at 26 facilities now nationwide. So this is obviously pretty widespread. We have a number of whistleblowers coming to light. It's one of those situations where one person came forward and now all the dominoes are falling. People are feeling very empowered across the country to come out and say this is what's happening at this hospital that I've been working with.
And there are not only the fact that some people we don't know how many, may have died because their treatment was delayed, but that hospital administrators gamed the system, basically, right? Covered up the fact that there had been such a delay.
Right.
So,
many of these whistleblowers have actually used the term cooking the books. Some of them had secret wait lists where they would put some of the veterans on a separate list so that the administration, when they looked through the files, wouldn't see that people weren't being seen within that 14-day standard timeline.
I think one of the interesting things that's coming out of this is former Defense Secretary Robert Gates has said that the VA is, in a lot of ways, even more complicated than the goings-on at the Pentagon. It's just so confusing and so convoluted that it's really tough to just get a handle on it. And so that's one of the things that's emerging is it's not just a flip the switch and everything is fixed, right? And find the problem and isolate it and solve that problem. It's just so many little issues all around the country.
well, also, there's so many layers, it seems to me, right? I mean, you mentioned Shinseki is this decorated war hero, and people do really respect him. You've also got the fact that the VA is the second largest bureaucracy in the federal government, second only to the Defense Department. So, with something that big, you expect some problems. You also got the fact that delays and complaints about the VA have been going on forever, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Forever. This is not like maybe this particular charge is new, but problems with the VA have been going on forever. And then you've got the fact that there are more people in the system now than ever before because people are living longer with their serious war injuries. And you got one war just ended and another war now ending, and all of those people are coming into the system. So you can see, like, it's almost a perfect storm, right? At the same time, if they don't get on top of this could be a serious problem for the Obama administration if these allegations are
absolutely
proved true.
This resonates much more deeply than, say, the Benghazi investigation or even the healthcare website.
Or the IRS.
Absolutely. No one wants to see veterans dying because they can't be seen by the hospitals that we've set up that we've had for years. But you're right, this problem has been going on for such a long time. We have such a problem with homelessness among veterans. Veterans aren't getting their benefits as quickly as they should be. And that's what everyone I spoke to on the Hill yesterday was saying. They were saying, we're not even sure that this is Shinseki's fault. It's possible that he could have done more to fix it, but this has been going on in many previous administrations.
Right. So how soon do we know when this investigation is going to be completed?
No, that's the big question right now. On Capitol Hill, they have absolutely no concept of what's going to be happening here. There's a separate investigation.
I mean, don't you think if you were Obama, you'd be on the phone saying, get that damn report on my desk today?
Get it out, absolutely.
Yeah,
because the longer it hangs out there.
Yeah, they can't let this thing just drag on and on and on.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. The House Veterans Affairs Committee has been doing a separate investigation. It's been going on about the same length of time. They were saying the Veterans Affairs Administration has been working on this for 8 days. They say that they've had 30 staffers working full-time on it. In that whole time, under the House subpoena, the House has only received 200 documents. And the chairman, Jeff Miller, was joking to me yesterday. I could have found 10 years worth of my own emails in a search in about a day. There seems to be a slowness, and House Republicans aren't sure whether it's an incompetence on behalf of the people who are looking into this matter or whether there is an actual stonewalling happening here.
Every day for the last 2 weeks, I guess, since this story broke, at our White House briefings, and he did so again yesterday, Jay Carney has said flat out, we have total confidence in General Shinseki. Mm-hmm. Now, again, he's a decorated war veteran, but what do you hear on Congress about his management abilities?
Again, there's been some of that reluctance to say anything about it. Tammy Baldwin, who's a Democratic congresswoman from Illinois, also a veteran.
Tammy, you mean from Wisconsin, senator?
I'm sorry, Tammy Duckworth.
Okay, yes, got it. Okay.
Tammy Duckworth, Democrat from Illinois, also a veteran. She also worked at the VA. She knows Shinseki. She was saying to me she has every confidence in the general. She's worked with him. She's seen him. She said no one cares more about our veterans than this man. She brought up an alternative theory, which is that he has tried so hard to overhaul that system and to do it quickly that there could be, and again, she's still waiting on the report, there could be a bureaucracy that is kind of reluctant to implement a lot of these changes, and that could be leading to further problems.
Wow. So this big meeting today in the Oval Office, it is a closed press, but we all expect that the president, either before or after the meeting, might have some public comments about the situation at the VA, meeting with General Eric Shinseki and with his Deputy Chief of Staff, Rod Neighbors. Sarah Mimms is with us from the National Journal. We also want to talk about some very exciting news on the marriage equality front yesterday. The number of states just keeps growing and growing and growing where same-sex marriage is now legal. We'll update you on that. Any calls or questions or comments about the VA, welcome as well at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Boy, what a difference 10 years makes, huh? Back in 2004, with President Bush running for re-election, there were 11 different measures on the ballot in 11 different states to for a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. And today, 10 years later, it's a rush. All of those passed. 10 years later, it's a rush for states to endorse and legalize same-sex marriage. Sarah Mimms, staff correspondent for the National Journal, in the studio with us. And yesterday we saw 2 more states, right, come on board.
Yeah, Oregon was on Monday. And then Pennsylvania was on Tuesday. What's interesting about Pennsylvania, actually, is they didn't even have a constitutional amendment. They passed a law several years ago, and yesterday's decision overturned that. Over in Oregon, you've had domestic partnerships for quite some time, I believe since 2007. And then on Monday, there was a huge ruling there. The judge in that case, it's really interesting. The attorney general, who's a Democrat, refused to defend the law in court. The judge.
This is in Pennsylvania, right?
I'm sorry, in Oregon.
Oh, in Oregon.
On Monday.
Yeah. Sorry.
The judge in that case is actually openly gay. He's the first openly gay federal judge in the state of Oregon. He was appointed by President Obama. He declined to let the National Organization for Marriage try to defend the law for themselves. So it was pretty clear, just from the arguments, not having anyone on the other side, that it was going to go that way. But it's still a very exciting day for couples in Oregon.
And I read somewhere that in Pennsylvania, the judge who ruled that that you have to just no way to ban same-sex marriage under the Constitution of Pennsylvania or the United States, that judge had been supported by Rick Santorum, of all people.
He was, yeah. That's the report out there. And then he was appointed by George W. Bush.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not...
There's a little bit of irony there, sure.
It is, and it's almost becoming not so much a liberal... I mean, on the judiciary, among the judiciary, right, it's not liberal or conservative. It's just looking at what the Constitution says, that there's no justification for denying people, for some people, right, the right to get married only because they happen to be
right.
gay or lesbian.
And so much of this is built off the Supreme Court decision on the Defense of Marriage Act. That's the way that a lot of these cases are being brought. They're being organized by a couple of pro-same-sex marriage legal groups like Lambda Legal and the ACLU. And they're making those arguments. And what we've seen is none of the cases since Defense of Marriage, in none of the cases has it not been overturned in favor of same-sex marriage.
How many states are we up to now?
This is 19. Pennsylvania was 19.
Wow.
With full legal marriage.
19 plus the District of Columbia.
Correct.
Yeah. It's just amazing how fast. I mean, I once threw out the challenge to see which was going to get to the finish line first in terms of all 50 states, legalize marijuana or legalize same-sex marriage. It's pretty clear right now that marriage equality is going to get
pulling away.
Yeah, it's pulling away.
Who is it now?
That's amazing. If I can just say, that's the entire West Coast, of course, Washington, California, Oregon, and
all three.
The entire Northeast. The entire Northeast. Pennsylvania means the entire Northeast. So we got the Deep South and then all that space in between.
There is that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I was going to ask is now at this point, who is it that's fighting against marriage equality? Like, what are the forces out there that are still trying to say, like, we don't want it?
There are not many.
Right.
Right now, there are, I believe, 2 states where the state legislatures are fighting just to get something on the ballot for voters to approve a constitutional ban. That's in Indiana and, gosh, I want to say...
Yeah.
I can't remember, honestly.
You know, I'd say the Catholic Church and the Mormon Church.
Yeah.
The ones who funded that initiative in California.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the National Organization for Marriage.
But and the National Organization for Marriage. But yeah, in some cases they've even been, as you pointed out, denied standing.
Right.
Back to the VA, a question from Joe out in Chicago on the great WCPT. Hey Joe, what's going on?
Hi, I just had the comment that part of the problem with the VA is probably that it's run by too many former leaders from the military, which has always had a culture of demanding blind obedience, that people obey orders no matter how bad and don't exercise any dissent. And when you run any kind of business like that, you end up stifling all the productive input from the people that work there, and therefore bad policy can be perpetuated, as well as from what my understanding was that the administrators at these hospitals received bonuses if the waiting lists were kept less than 2 weeks long, and that it appears that there might have been some actual conspiracy going on.
Yeah, So, interesting comment. And if they get those bonuses, maybe they game the system in order to get the bonus. That question about the, former members of the military running the VA, there have been management problems with the VA
for decades.
Forever, right?
Absolutely.
For decades,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've traced it back. There's a story a couple of my colleagues wrote for National Journal yesterday saying that this dates back to at least JFK. I mean, this has been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, so you would think, what did it take to really get some attention to it, and how can you fix it? It's going to be a massive problem, and it's not going to be fixed overnight either.
No, absolutely. But I think a lot of veterans advocates are very happy that this has come to light now that this scandal has become so huge that the media is paying so much attention, because it will bring to light all of the other issues there and hopefully lead to some solutions.
And, at the same time, you've got to admit that the VA does a lot of great stuff and does give people a lot of great care that they really, really need. I mean, I've been out to Bethesda and just been marveled at some of the people there and the care that they're giving. So this is putting a kind of a cloud over everything that they've got to get fixed. They've got to get soon. Good thing the president's meeting with Shinseki today, and I hope we see some action there. And Sarah Mimms, thanks for staying on top of all this stuff for
Thanks
us.
so much.
All right, and coming in today, appreciate it very much, at National Journal, nationaljournal.com, and I'll be back with today's parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Okay, on this Wednesday, May 21, my parting shot for today. Another day and another Republican conspiracy theory falls apart. The latest, Dinesh D'Souza, longtime popular right-wing writer and commentator who made a scurrilous anti-Obama documentary in 2012. Well, in January, D'Souza was charged by the Justice Department for making $20,000 in illegal phony campaign contributions by, get this, asking his mistress and her husband to launder money for him. Right away, the right-wing spin machine went into high gear. All the regular nut jobs, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Mark Levin, claiming D'Souza was a victim placed on Obama's enemies list as payback for making that documentary. It was the latest great big fat juicy Republican conspiracy until yesterday when D'Souza pleaded guilty, exposed the entire conspiracy as a fraud, said he knew at the time that what he was doing was illegal, but he did it anyway and lied about it. And they lied about it. Lied about D'Souza being targeted by the DOJ, just like they lied about conservative organizations being targeted by the IRS. Bottom line, how do you know those right-wingers on radio and television are lying? When their lips are moving. That's how. Hey, folks, that's it for Wednesday. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here again Thursday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.